Hey guys, I'm Flying Scorpion, and I'm going to take you on a deep dive through status effects in Warframe, specifically focusing on Corrosive, Viral, Heat, and Magnetic. And we're going to compare them as close as we can on an apples-to-apples basis in their ability to take down targets in Warframe at level 100. We're going to be focusing on the Grineer, the Corpus, and the Infested. We will not be included the Sentients in this test because the Sentients are for the most part immune to status effects, and they also have a unique mechanic where they develop damage resistance at different health gates, which makes them really tricky to use in an apples-to-apples comparison. Before I get into it, I want to say to DE that I love your game. I think Warframe is an awesome game. I'm trying to be helpful in what I'm doing. If you notice any issues in what I'm doing, let me know. I'm open to criticism and I'm willing to make improvements upon what I do. There's definitely opportunity for me to have made errors in my data entry, in my math, in my methodology. I also want to let DE know that they've done a great job in Warframe. The game is awesome. I've been playing off and on since 2014. They have phenomenally talented artists and sound guys and level designers and storyline writers, and just a lot of you are doing fantastic. And I think far too often you receive extremely harsh criticism and backlash from the community, and I don't think it's particularly fair. I don't think you guys get enough credit for the things that you do right. And even if you don't address the issues that I'm going to bring up in this video, I'm still going to keep playing Warframe. I still like it. It's a great pastime. This isn't like a deal breaker for me, but it would be nice if you guys did address these issues. I also want to say that when update 27.2 came out, Warframe Revised in early 2020, I made it a point to go out and spend some money on the game, and I bought some platinum. And I didn't particularly need the platinum, but I wanted to show financial support for Digital Extreme's decision to go back and fix things in the game. And if the community wants Digital Extremes to fix old content or rebalance important critical systems in the game, or fundamental systems in the game, I would encourage you to spend some money on the game when they update the game, as in Warframe Revised. If they do things like that and you spend some money, you're voting with your wallet and you're showing this is what matters, please do more of this. In addition to that, I want to say that this video that you're watching is an investment of my time to demonstrate that this is important to me, and anyone who watches this video is also investing their time and showing that this is the important stuff to them as well. That's a mouthful. So there's some of the data, and there's a little more here, and I'll go into the game and I'll show you a little bit of what I got going on in the simulacrum. And I want to say that I got a cough. I'm going to try to edit that stuff out if I cough a whole bunch. I've recorded this and attempted to record this many times, and I've had a lot of issues with recording it, so hopefully this is a good cut and I can just get it up there on YouTube and actually get this video up. I'm late. It's Monday and I wanted to get this out over the weekend on Saturday. By the time I'm done recording this, I'm probably going to be like, oh yeah, I should have said this. Oh yeah, I should have said that. I'll put a link in the description below to this spreadsheet so that you can check out the numbers for yourself, and please let me know if there was an error or a mistake. Part of what I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to actually be addressing some of the issues that were brought up in the previous test, in my Viral is OP video. So here's the spreadsheet I used in my Viral is OP video to show that Viral and Heat was beating everything else. One of the first mistakes that was brought to my attention in the previous video was that I was using the Super Vandal. And the Super Vandal is heavily slanted towards puncture damage. And I wasn't aware of this, but puncture damage bypasses enemy armor. So it not only has plus 50% bonus damage to ferrite armor and plus 25% bonus damage to ally armor, but it also bypasses 50% ferrite armor and 25% ally armor. And this gives it an unfair advantage when used in combination with Viral, compared to when used with Corrosive, if you're trying to compare Viral and Corrosive on an apples-to-apples basis. So I built a couple of new weapons. Go back to the game here. I built the Cerberus Prime and I built the Stradivar Prime. Now the Cerberus Prime has a perfectly balanced IPS damage profile of impact, puncture, and slash. That's IPS. And the issue with this weapon is that it is semi-auto or burst fire, and I'd have to keep clicking the mouse again and again or flicking the mouse wheel to keep shooting, and it took me thousands and thousands of bullets to kill these guys. I shot a lot, is what I'm saying. I shot a lot at these guys. They were level 100. They have tens of thousands of health. So I built the Stradivar Prime instead. It's a fully automatic weapon. Now, it has an almost perfectly balanced damage profile. So I'll just go over to here so you can see. This is the impact, puncture, and slash. Now, the slash is slightly less than the impact and puncture, so I put a sawtooth clip that's got only a couple ranks in it, and that bumps it up to being almost perfectly balanced. Hey guys, I'm in the video editing process right now, and I realized that I forgot to mention something during the first recording, and it's that Digital Extremes took away the 400% status chance multiplier on impact, puncture, and slash when considering the damage profile of a weapon and applying a status effect. For example, let's say you had a weapon with 10 physical damage and 40 elemental damage. You would have a 50-50 chance of either applying the physical damage or the elemental damage's status effect. So now that they've taken away the 4 times status chance multiplier in impact, puncture, and slash, let's say you have 10 physical damage and 40 elemental damage, you apply a status effect, you're 4 times as likely now to apply the elemental status effect instead of the physical status effect. So it makes it a lot harder to apply physical status effects to weapons. And the solution normally would be to apply a physical damage mod onto a weapon, but it's tricky because physical damage modding follows a different set of rules than elemental damage modding. So if you apply an elemental damage mod, it'll take a percentage of the total damage of the weapon and apply that percentage as elemental damage. If you apply a physical damage mod, it'll take a percentage of just that innate physical damage on the weapon and apply that as a percentage on top of the total damage of the weapon. So, for example, the Stradivar Prime that I was using, if I added Fanged Fuselage, which is 120% slash damage, onto that Stradivar Prime, I would get an extra 10.8 slash damage added onto the weapon. So it would be slightly more likely to apply a bleed proc than impact or puncture. If I applied a 90% cold or electric or whatever mod onto it, an elemental one, it would take 90% of the total damage, which would be about 26, 27 damage, and add that as an elemental damage onto the mod. And in the end, you would end up with almost 50% of the time applying that elemental status effect instead of the impact, puncture, and slash. So that's 90% elemental damage versus 120% slash damage on that Stradivar Prime. So what I think D needs to do is address this by either bringing back the 4 times status chance multiplier on physical damage, or changing it so that when you apply a physical damage mod onto a weapon, it takes the cumulative result of all the damage types, the profile of the weapon, and adds a percentage of all of that onto it as a particular element. This issue is exacerbated by new weapons that are being added to the game that have both physical damage and elemental damage innately on the weapon, and you can't take away the elemental damage. So, for example, if you've got a weapon that has, like the Quelor, that has cold damage on it already, or any other weapon that has an elemental, like radiation damage on it already, it just becomes that much harder to beef up the physical damage on it when it's competing with the elemental damage on it. Back to the rest of the video. The issue with this weapon is that it's actually got a pretty low status chance. Where's the status? 12%. So it's kind of a low status chance. I want to show you how I modded the weapon. I did 60/60s across the board for the combined elements, and then when I wanted to separate them so I could see how well heat was doing in comparison to magnetic, corrosive, and viral, I had to address the issue. There is no 2 separate 60/60 status mods for heat. So I had to use one 60% heat mod in combination with the 60/60 heat mod. And we'll go back to here. And then when I did something like a magnetic build, I would do one 60% cold and then a 60/60 electric to change it to magnetic, and then all the other stats would be the same. So a 30% status chance is a little bit on the low end, but it helps me to illustrate another issue, and that's the imbalance between heat and corrosive, and we'll get to that in a bit. The build for the Warframe I used Limbo, and I used this Cataclysm to freeze the enemies in place in conjunction with Stasis. Cataclysm deals 200 explosive damage to the enemies, but these enemies have so many hit points that the 200 explosive damage is a drop in the ocean and it's not worth worrying about. I didn't use Corrosive Projection, as you can see here. How did I go about doing it? This is a good time to put the background footage on, but first I'll show what I spawned. I spawned a Runner, an Ancient Disruptor, a Fusion Moa, a Corpus Tech, a Corrupted Heavy Gunner, and a Corrupted Bombard. And I chose these 6 guys is because I have 2 from each faction. I have 2 Infested, 2 Sentient, and 2 Grenier. And I've got Ally Armor and Cloned Flesh, Ferrite Armor, Proto Shields and Flesh, Shields and Robotic, Fossilized, and Infested. The one that sticks out the most here is the Runner. It only has 100 Infested Flesh, whereas the other guys have several hundred hit points. I wanted to use the Leaping Thrasher for my test. It has 6 times as many hit points, and it's a lot more in line with the rest of these enemies, but since it's immune to viral procs, couldn't use it. And I mentioned this before. I don't know if it was in a previous recording or if it's in this one, but the Sentients are immune to status effects, and yeah, they couldn't be used in this test. The Brachioolist can be affected by status effects, but it's only one out of the 2 different variants of sentient health. These guys have ferrite armor and robotic health, and this guy has shields and flesh. He's the only guy, as far as I know, that has shields and flesh. I haven't finished scanning these guys yet. So I didn't want to use them if I'm just going to use these guys. Besides, the Brachioolists are not tanky. They're like the trash mobs. They're like the filler guys that you just kill really quickly, as is the Runner. But generally speaking, I'm focusing on the tanky guys. And I'm going to go back to my webcam here and just kind of stand up for a second here. So when you're using slash, viral, heat, corrosive especially, or magnetic, that damage, those damage types or those status effects are most helpful when you're fighting a really tanky enemy. You don't really care about the trash mobs. Like if you have like a bunch of weak lancers or butchers or, you know, the Brachiolis or a bunch of like runners and whatnot, they die really easily. It's when you come up against the bombards, the heavy gunners, the Corpus Techs, the Amalgam Alkanos and whatnot. I'll show those guys in a moment. The tanky guys. That's when you get the chance to stack up all those status effects, and that's when it really counts and it actually matters. So I tried to use those tanky enemies in my tests as best as I could. Some of those guys are immune to status effects, like I said, and I just couldn't use them in the test. So that's why I ended up like this. That's why this test ended up like this. All right, so the Amalgam Alkanost, I'll show that guy in a second here. Alkanost. That's the floaty guy that injects the memes into the enemy's head. Let's just go to here. That's this guy right here. They have 300 shield and 650 robotic compared to the 250 shield and the 250 robotic. So they got a lot of robotic health. The other thing about the Sentients, I should point out, is that a lot of them have robotic health. And that's just something that we'll just take note of right now. Here's the health pie of the enemies that was used in the test. And here's the list of the enemies that was in it. And here are their health numbers at their base level. Okay, so there's a small issue here. We got 500 alloy armor and 500 ferrite armor. But if you go and look at the Bombard spawn actually at a base level of 4. See, base level of 4. So they have 500 ally armor at their base level, and the Corrupted Heavy Gunners spawn at a base level of 8. So if I bring this guy up to level 8, he's got actually 528 ally armor. And the Corpus Tech, for example, he spawns at a base level of 15. So it's not a perfect representation of the percentage of the health pools there. This is the pie chart that I wanted to use. This is the health profile if I was actually able to use the Sentients and the Amalgam Alkanost and the Leaping Thrasher. And as you can see, the Infested flesh portion is really small here, but it's a lot bigger there. The robotic health portion is way bigger there, and the shield portion is bigger as well. But yeah, so you can just look at this. Like I said, the spreadsheet link will be in the description below. You can take a look at it yourself, and maybe you can copy it and adjust the numbers yourself. So this in mind, I think that Digital Extremes need to keep this data or this pie chart in mind themselves when they're balancing status effects. And here's why. Magnetic is only applicable to this small portion of the pie, and viral is applicable to literally everything else. When you're shooting at a shielded enemy and you're dealing magnetic procs, usually by the time the magnetic procs get to 10 out of 10 stacks, the shields are already gone. And so the damage bonus from magnetic is squandered on the enemy's health. Whereas viral, it's the opposite. As you're damaging the shields, viral has a chance to stack up to 10 stacks, and then by the time the shields are destroyed, you're hitting their health with, triple damage, and you're getting a really big bonus from viral. And that plays out in my test, and you'll see it. These are level 100 enemies, guys, and they're not weak level 100 enemies. It's like the tankier guys. So, yeah. Now, does this mean that magnetic is underpowered? No, I wouldn't say so. I think it's more so that viral is a little bit overpowered. Viral is also more applicable to across the board to all enemies, and magnetic is only applicable to a narrow portion of the game. All right, let's get to the actual meat and potatoes of the video, and I'm going to hide my face here for a moment. I've got some numbers here at the top. Total bullets, 869 total bullets. This would be if you added up all the bullets in the Stradivar Prime. So I have 149 bullets on the bottom right of the screen here, 149 bullets in the clip, 720 bullets in the reserve ammunition. If I killed the enemy in one hit, so one pull of the trigger, I would have had 868 bullets remaining. So 868 represents the highest possible score that could have been entered into any one of these cells. So a score of 853 means I killed the guy in 16 bullets. And I'll just demonstrate that with my calculator real quick just to show you. 869 minus 853 equals 16. So that means it took me 16 bullets to kill the runner with a viral and heat build, and the runner was level 100. So I killed him pretty fast. Across the board, you can see the numbers going down. It goes down to 599 against the Corrupted Heavy Gunner, which is the tankiest guy. And so you would take 869, subtract 599. It took me 270 bullets to kill the Corrupted Heavy Gunner with the viral heat build. So, and that's more than one full magazine or one full clip. So I had to actually reload there and then continue shooting to kill that guy. If I used up all of my bullets, every single bullet I had, and I had no more bullets left in the gun, and I had to come back onto the platform and reload, then the numbers would dip into the negatives. And that meant I was probably shooting at the enemy for like 5 minutes straight. So you can see here that magnetic is the only one that ended up getting some negatives, particularly against a Grineer. So that's how you end up with some of these numbers going down there. So let's go across here. If you add up all of these numbers and you come up to a total, the total would be this right here. If they were able to kill the enemy in a single bullet, the total would be this, 5,208, and that represents the highest possible score available on my test. So if it got a score of 4,560 out of 5,208, that's pretty good. So if you were to turn that into a percentage, it would look like this, 87.55%. And so on. It would be 88%. So a score of 88% on this test is actually really good because these are level 100 enemies, and the only way to get 100 out of 100 on this test is to kill every single one of the enemies in one single bullet. So an 88% score is very good. So let's look at the charts here. So this is everything all compared next to each other, and this is everything compared next to each other cut off at the 3,000 mark. So if I cut with a knife right here, and magnetic fell off, we would have everything that's left. So let's go back to the first chart. Viral and heat got a score of 4,560. Corrosive and heat got a score of 4,231. That's actually not that bad. And then magnetic and heat got a score of 3,088. Again, that's not too bad. How much of it is it that the corrosive or the magnetic can stand on their own without the heat? Well, here's the separation of these elements right here. Viral is doing very well on its own. Heat is doing very well on its own. Corrosive is doing pretty good on its own, and magnetic is doing really bad on its own. So if you cut it off, you can see the same data here. It's just a little bit easier to compare them, and then this is the percentage like I explained. Now let's separate them into different factions. So this is all the infested guys. So here's the score here, right? Score there. Here's the Corpus, right? Just the Corpus guys. Here's the Grineer guys. Whoops. There's the Grineer guys. And then I did one more at the end with the Grineer and I just removed the magnetic because it was kind of making it difficult to compare everything. So here's the Infested. There's nothing standing out as unusual here. And to be honest, if I was fighting against the Infested, I would use gas and electric combined together, or slash or something like that. I didn't use those in this test because it's difficult to compare them with everything else, and that's not really the focus of this test. It's on single target killing. So you can take what you will from this. I wouldn't really focus that much on the Infested. Here's the Corpus. Again, it's a pretty flat playing field, but one thing that's disappointing is that Magnetic's not doing particularly well here. And this is Magnetic's only real area to shine, is against the shielded enemies. And it's actually doing worse than Viral. Viral's beating Magnetic in this. And I think the reason for that is, like I explained before, Magnetic is building up its potential to deal a lot of damage, but it loses out because the shields are gone by the time it's actually built up, whereas Viral, it's the opposite. So Viral is actually doing better against the Corpus than Magnetic is. And so is Heat, which is surprising to me. I'm really surprised by that, and I think that's because Heat is able to deal damage over time, and Heat does a lot of damage against flesh, so, you know, there you go. And then here's the Grineer. And, you know, no surprises there. Magnetic's not doing well. And then we take that out of the picture. We get basically what I've been saying all along. And it's that Viral is a little bit overpowered, and Heat and Corrosive are imbalanced as well. Now I'm going to focus specifically on Heat and Corrosive because I got a little side note here. Trouble maintaining 10 stacks of Corrosive. During the test, when I was shooting against the Grineer with a 30% status chance on my weapon, my Corrosive procs were dipping below 10. They were dipping down to 9, 8, 7, and then going back up again to 10. Whereas my Heat procs were consistently more than 10. They were like 20 and above. And what that says to me is that Corrosive procs decay faster than Heat procs do, which gives Heat another advantage over Corrosive. So let's just talk about what Heat does. Heat has single target crowd control because the enemies flail their arms in the air. It has single target damage over time. It deals 50% armor strip, and it decays at a lower rate than Corrosive does, so it lasts longer, and it can stack above 10. It can stack as many times. You could stack it 1,000 times on a single enemy if you can shoot fast enough and have a high enough status chance. So that's a lot going on for Heat. Let's talk about what Corrosive does. Corrosive caps out at 10. It starts off at 25% armor strip as opposed to 50. Well, Heat starts off lower, but it only takes one Heat proc to get to 50%. So anyway, one Corrosive proc gives you 25% armor strip. It caps out at 80% armor strip. It decays faster than Heat, and it only strips armor. That's the only thing that it does, is it strips armor, whereas Heat does all these other secondary and tertiary things. So it's a no-brainer. Heat is better than Corrosive. I think that Corrosive's balance is based around the old armor scaling. Armor scaling used to be out of control. The armor would ramp up to the point where the enemies were taking like no damage, and you needed Corrosive to be able to actually deal damage to the enemies. But the armor scaling has been rebalanced to follow an S-curve, and this makes Corrosive less valuable as a status effect. I like the fact that it caps out at 80% armor strip. I think that's a really good idea to keep the game balanced moving forward. If you have 100% armor strip, it creates these absolute values that are difficult to balance, right? It creates these parabolic curves. And Warframe has a lot of parabolic curves with these extremes, and that creates difficulty for the developers to balance things. Maybe you can make it so that Corrosive proc lasts longer. It doesn't decay as fast. For Heat, you could make it so that the Heat procs decay a little bit faster. You can make it so that the Heat proc, instead of reducing 50% of the armor, it reduces like 30% of the armor. You could take so many different things away from Heat, because Heat has so much going on. You just pick and choose something to reduce or something to take away, and that could bring it more in line with the other elements. For Viral, I think it's obvious. Just reduce the damage multiplier. Magnetic has a 325% damage multiplier, which is fine. take Viral's damage multiplier and just bring it down a little bit. Maybe make Viral have a 275% damage bonus or a 250% damage bonus. I'm not sure. You can pick a number. Hopefully this video is helpful to you. I put a lot of work into this video, so I hope that you guys appreciate that. Please give it a thumbs up or leave a comment below on your thoughts. Hopefully DE addresses this stuff. I want to thank you guys for watching. And again, I want to say thank you to DE for making Warframe. It's an awesome game, and you guys are really doing a great job. And the stuff I bring up in this video is not a deal breaker for me. I'll keep playing the game, but it would be nice if you did address these issues. It would be nice if you dealt with that stuff. And hey, you know what? Maybe I'll spend money again on it if you guys do another, bug fixing or mostly a rebalancing patch where if you focus on rebalancing things, maybe I'll throw some more money your way, and maybe some of my viewers will as well, because I know that really has an impact on the direction of where the development team goes. All right, well, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.